Joe. Not the Joe that's here, but Joe, Mr. I think I'm a plumber Joe. Because he thinks he's the shit for the Republican Party, and he's running for some office somewhere. I think it was in Pennsylvania. I hate this guy. He's a nutball, and everybody, if you haven't heard of Joe the plumber, just take a few minutes. We'll just pause the audio right now and go type in Joe the plumber, and you'll see who I'm talking about. This guy's his actual name is Samuel Wutzler, and he's better known as, like I said, Joe the plumber. And recently, because of all the deaths that happened out in California, and you may have heard of this, and I'm not going to give the person's name who did this heinous thing there, because I don't know how to give him any credit, because too often people will go, hey, well, this person did this, and I want to emulate them. Well, I'm not going to give you that guy's name, so you can just forget that. But because of the shooting rampage, this knucklehead, he seems to think, well, this is a good time for me to speak up for gun rights. What a douchebag. He said, and I quote, "I am sorry for your lost child. I myself have a son and daughter, and the one thing I would never want to go through is what you're going through now. But, as harsh as this sounds, your dead kids don't trump my constitutional rights." Really? Your constitutional rights, okay? And I fail to think of what this guy would do if this actually happened to his family. If this had happened to him. This guy, he just pisses me off to no end. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's Joe the plumber. Why does anyone listen to this guy anymore? He said so many ridiculous things over the years. It's kind of like he's kind of like another Sarah Palin,
Mm-hmm.
But this story is about the Second Amendment, about gun rights. I think that people have the right to own a gun. I mean, I own a gun. It's not a very impressive gun. However, I do understand the need to regulate guns to help protect the public from mass shootings.
Right.
And Mother Jones recently did a really good article called 10 Pro-Gun Myths Shot Down.
Mm-hmm.
It came out... Oh, it's not recent. It's old. I thought it was recent. Oh, I saw it recently.
That makes it recent, Joe.
But if it's
Right.
relevant.
Right.
It is good, though. It has 10 myths, and the very number one is, they're coming to take your guns.
Don't take my guns.
And the fact check is, of course, there's nothing in Congress where they're planning to take your guns. There's no person in Congress saying, we need to round up all the guns. Like, it's just hysteria. They get all excited, like, oh no, they're going to take our... And it's not happening.
Right. Guns
don't kill people, people kill people. And the fact check says, people with more guns tend to kill more people with guns.
Right.
And it has all these stats backing it up. And it goes on. All of these are backed by statistics. They're all a lot of these are arguments that you hear, like, from your crazy uncle with all the gun collection on Facebook. And it's a really good article. I think I'm going to link this in the Packard Pokes At page because it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Yes. You'll find that at packardpokesat.wordpress.com in a few days.
Right. It talks about guns make women safer.
I remember that. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. In 2010, nearly 6 times more women were shot by husbands, boyfriends, and ex-partners than murdered by male strangers.
Yeah.
A woman's chance of being killed by her abuser increases more than 7 times if he has access to a gun.
Yep.
One study found that women in states with higher gun ownership rates were 4.9 times more likely to be murdered by a gun than women in states with lower gun ownership rates. So, I mean, this is all statistics-based. It's all science. It's not, like, assumptions and, like right. Oh, well, I heard that if everybody was walking around with a gun, there'd be less crime. No, actually, if there was a lot more guns around, there's more crime because people get pissed off at each other and they start shooting.
Yeah. The Fox News will pull up that one story, the one woman. This happened a few months ago, earlier this year, I think. This one older grandma, she just happened to have a gun, someone broke in, and then she was able to stop the assailant and with the gun, okay? That's great and everything, but that is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, yeah, that's super, super rare that something like that happens.
Right.
And yeah, it worked for her. She's now alive because of it, and fine, that's great. However, in most cases, if you have a gun in your house, statistically, you are more likely to either have an accident with it or lose it and have a problem, or somebody breaks in and you have a problem. And
Right.
It's not protecting you as much as it is harming you statistically.
Right. I just want to read something from the chat room here. Dawkins Dog, he said, the biggest myth is that the First Amendment was intended to allow every dipshit to run about with a gun. It wasn't. So...
Well, it says right in it, well regulated.
Well
and whenever
regulated.
I point that out to people, they're like, "Oh, whoa!" I'm like, "No, gun control laws are regulation, well regulated." And they're like, "Oh," but no, it says it right there.
Exactly.
Like in England, they're always like, "We don't want to be like England where there's no guns." There are guns in England. You can own them if you get the proper permits, if you have proper gun safes in your house, if you lock them up properly so that your kids can't get to them. If someone breaks in your house, they can't steal them on you. It's just better regulated. It's licensed.
Right.
People have to go through safety courses. It's exactly what we should be doing here.
Yep.
Because it reduces gun deaths and it reduces people running around in the streets with guns going, "Woohoo! It's the Wild West!" Boom, 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 boom. And and I know for a fact that people in England have guns because Dawkins Dog keeps texting me pictures of his gun, and he's like, "Hey Joe, look at my gun."
he says that's not my gun. That's my pink cannon.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that's not. Dude, like, I need to see that.
Dawkins Dog is a lethal weapon.
Yeah. Nice.
He has diplomatic immunity.
That's right.
It's just been revoked.
I'm too old for this shit.
The fact that we all find that funny ages all of us.
There's this old clip I had.
It validates all of us, Joe.
Yes, I have this old clip from Robin Williams clip. He says, in America, you have a gun, they have a gun. In England, they don't have a gun, you don't have a gun. When a police says stop, he goes, you're running from him. He says stop. I'll say stop again. All right, Connie, your thoughts.
A book that's been written by Michael Waldman, who was is the president of Brennan Center for Justice at the New York School of Law. He has a new book coming out, and I put a reserve on it because it's really something I'm interested in. Second Amendment, a biography, and he says, why are we as a society willing to put up with mass shootings as the price we must pay for the right to carry a gun?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, you've been mentioning about regulation, and people, the NRA, one of their sound bites that they have people parroting is said, well, cars kill people every day, knives kill people every day. But you know what? We do regulate cars. You know, you have to get a license. You have to renew the license. You have to take tests. You have to prove you can drive cars. You've got, there's all kinds of regulation, and it's the original intent of the Second Amendment, according to Walden's book, and just an article I was reading about a review about this book. It was the founders were opposed to a standing army. It was because they felt it was the first step towards tyranny, and the Second Amendment was probably the least debated of all of the amendments. But they assumed that a male citizenry would all belong to a local militia, and people were not, these men were not allowed but required to have a musket. Armed was not a right but a duty. But the idea of a militia died out. And when militias evaporated, so did the original meaning of the Second Amendment. But I'm quoting Waldman now. What we did not have was a regime of let me try one more time. Was a regime of judiciously enforced individuals' rights able to trump the public good. There was nothing else in place to further, it just was not further defined. And we didn't have really any more gun legislation. I'm sorry, tonight I can't talk.
That's right, neither can I. I run the show, I still can't talk.
In 1939, the Supreme Court upheld the first national gun law, the National Firearms Law Act, which put limits on sawed-off shotguns and machine guns, because they were not seen as reasonable to be within the limits of a well-regulated militia. But what happened is in 1977, there was kind of a coup amongst the NRA, and it was taken over by the Second Amendment fundamentalists.
Right.
And in 1972, the GOP platform actually favored gun control, but by 1980, the GOP opposed gun registration, and they nominated their first presidential endorsement for Ronald Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
They've been, since 1977, the NRA has been redefining the Second Amendment.
Right.
And it's just really bad because these shootings, these mass shootings, and again, we're not going to name the most recent because guess what? Change the name, change this place. The players are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so, these people's individual rights to bear arms have trumped the public good, and because of it, innocent people have been shot as a result.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So,
yeah. Any last thoughts on that, anybody?
Well, I don't think anybody wants to take away people's, ability to have firearms. But,
right.
The problem with any kind of a weapon is once you've fired it, whether you're talking about an arrow or you're talking about a gun in a bullet, you can't take that back.
Exactly.
If people want to look at the news, just in the last week since this mass shooting, look at how many little kids have gotten a hold of a firearm and shot and killed a relative and by accident.
Yeah, when I was growing up, I lived in an apartment complex, multifaceted apartments, and there was across the hall from me, and unfortunately I was in the upper levels, and I wasn't even there at the time. The guy who lived across from me was a state trooper, and apparently while he was cleaning his gun, it accidentally went off, shot through the wall, through the floor, and shot down into the apartment next down below. I don't think it hit anybody, but there was an investigation, of course, because most police, they help their own, as it were. They cover each other up. He wasn't charged, but a few years later he was killed in an accident coming back from a camping trip or something. So he's not around anymore. But the fact is, sorry, random information there. But the fact is that it doesn't matter in this case. He was supposed to be a trained professional, okay? And his gun accidentally shot through the floor and could have killed somebody.
Yep.
So to think that just because you put a lock on it, or just because you think that everybody could just have a gun, is the wrong idea. It should be regulated, yes. If someone wants a gun, make sure that they can know how to use it, and make sure that people know around you, I guess, that you have the gun. I guess the local authorities know that these people have guns. I don't have all the answers on this, obviously. I'm just kind of spitballing from sources of stuff I've heard on how they want to regulate this stuff, but I have to do more research on it. But it's a very hot topic, and it's something hard to deal with.
Real quick, there is some input from our British listeners in the chat room that it is really, really hard to get a gun permit in England. Like, they were calling foul on me, and I went and double checked, and they're saying that yeah, if you're a farmer and maybe a sports shooter, you can get a gun permit for a shotgun or something. But otherwise, for the last 17 years, since 1997, they passed this really strict law. Even airsoft guns are illegal.
A pellet gun.
Well, airsoft.
Yeah, that'd be air. Those are air guns. Yeah, those are pellet guns.
They shoot like the plastic BBs.
Oh, really? Those ones? Even those?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those ones you can pick up at $5 a dime.
You can buy those at Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. I mean, what I based my comments on was that if you're a farmer in the country, yes, you can have a shotgun. And I also read that you can use them for sporting, and that's what they're backing up. But they're also saying that, let's say one of Dawkins' dog or my Sick Bones wanted to go down and just get a shotgun permit, they probably would not be allowed to have one.
Right. Yeah.
It's that strict.
Right.
Because they don't live on a farm and they're not sports shooters.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly it. If you have to have good reason to have one, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
that's the only reason we have him in our house, is my husband's a sportsman.
See, there you
go. And I've told him I don't want a handgun.
Right.
And I like to load mine for no reason in the middle of the night when I'm really drunk. So I need.
I think you're confusing a different gun, Joe. That one that's portable and goes with you everywhere. That's a
no. This is the one that takes gunpowder shells.
Oh, okay. Speaking of, the thing is, when I was thinking about this earlier. When that was written, back then they had muskets. You know, they had to put the ball in. It took them 20 minutes to load up the bullets. You know, you had to, and by the time you got that thing loaded, if you were pissed off enough at somebody, you better hope that you're still pissed off after 20 minutes after doing that, because by that time they're fucking gone. There's no drive by with this. You know,
it was not the most efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think if people want to go back to those kind of guns, and those kind of guns would be very difficult for drive-by, because you're going to get one. Come on, hold on, you know, get that in there. It's like, okay, boom. Okay, we got to go reload again. You know.
Well, there you go. Maybe we should say, if you want to go back to the framers of the Constitution, then go back to their firearms.
Right. Sure. Why not? There we go. That'll solve a lot of those problems then.
You know what's really funny is quickly going back to that Mother Jones article.
Mm-hmm.
You often hear that the civilians need guns to protect us from the government, because the government is so far-reaching and powerful. It actually broke down the statistics. The government owns something like, military and police combined, something like 4 million guns.
Right.
And the civilians in the United States own something like 300 million guns.
Right. So if you think
it's 79 to 1.
Right. So if you think
if the government came after us.
Yeah, if the government could decide to come after you, you have almost zero chance of surviving. You might take out one or two, but they're going to get you one way or the other. But the chances of that happening, not going to happen.
It would be a major undertaking for them to round up all the guns. It's so...
Yeah.
There's so many. Like they said, the average gun owner owns more than 7.
Right.
So.
But what about Red Dawn? What about
Red Dawn Wolverines? I think that's the kind of movie that the Republicans sit there and they jerk off to. So.
Yeah. I've actually seen people on TV argue, well, like, what if Red Dawn happens?
Like, wait, what?
Well,
like, you know, it's ridiculous.
I'm sorry,
what if that happens?
Right.
Well, one of the things that these people too, they'll like to say, "Oh, remember how Hitler confiscated the guns, and what about Denmark or someplace else in Europe
Hitler
that
didn't
the Jews fought back?" And first of all, he didn't confiscate. The gun laws were more liberal once he came in, but also the place in I think it was Denmark in the article that I read. The Jews fought back, but they were outgunned by like hundreds and hundreds. You know, the odds were awful. A lot more people died, and then the rest of them were just rounded up and put in camps anyway. I don't mean to sound defeatist, but it did not work for exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, the government is going to win in a gunfight.
Right. It's you might as well bring a plastic knife that folds in. Because it's the same kind of equipment. That's the same reaction you're gonna get. Go ding.
My
ding,
sister
ding.
and I actually had a plastic gun knife fight one time.
Okay.
Mom came in just as I was lobbing at her, and I got in trouble.
Of course you did.
Of course.
She's hit me 5 times. I'm getting get her once, and I'm in trouble. Ugh.
I've been a pacifist ever since.
Yes, there you go.